Well, then there was a letter going back to the 4-wide story, and Ron Capps wrote a letter and sent it to Competition Plus, and he had his quote in it, and it was this, that he was disappointed by the press conference that was held by Tom Compton that followed, and he was not happy with what Mike Dunn had to say on the air, the whole thing about the backpedaling. In fact, it was a 2-page letter that Ron wrote, and he said, you want the facts, so you just got to talk to the right people and get the facts. Now, we thought we did that, Ron, but where are you standing right now? Because nobody at Pro would talk to us.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, I sent a text message to Mike. The admiration I have, of course, for Mike, and here's the deal. When Pro and NHRA met, there's a lot that I found out when Bob Tasca, Larry Dix, and myself were asked to join Pro at the end of last year. A lot of people didn't understand what Pro, and I'm, like Mike Dunn, I didn't think Pro really did much in the past, and so it was an eye-opener to find out what really Pro had done in the past working with NHRA that people just didn't know. Kenny Bernstein used to be the president, and I soon found out that they didn't really look for any credit for anything done. And talking with Tom Compton after the meeting, nobody needs a winner here. Do we need to win this argument? Does NHRA need to say, yeah, it was my idea? Does Pro need to? No, but I started reading the less than great journalism on some of the websites, and when I heard Mike, I sent him a text and said, come by in St. Louis, I'll fill you in a little bit on what went down in the meeting that I can share. And, basically, we got with NHRA, and for the better of the sport. We had issues, and Tom Compton listened to our issues, Graham Light listened, and they said, done deal. I mean, we had certain things. We wanted to change the Christmas tree. We wanted to make sure that the TV package was looked at better for the sponsors, and which everybody's on top of already. A little bit better safety at the top end of the track, and maybe running the wall all the way into the sand trap and make 2 separate sand traps, and just little things that we would thought were better, and it was a group effort. And so it aggravated me to read all these guys writing this stuff on the internet, editorials, things like that were only one-sided, and I don't think it's good journalism to go write something when you only know half the story. And so that that's kind of why I stepped out a little bit. I checked with Kenny Bernstein, and I just wanted to share with people that, look, Pro has done a lot more than you'd imagine, a lot more. And there's some I can't even mention, but there's some that I can, and it's an eye-opener, like I said. When I found out what they'd done in the past, it made me a little more prouder to be a member of the Pro.
Well, Ron, as we watch Eric Enders go down the track, too, making a pass of 6:68, a lapse time to Ronnie Humphrey with a similar lapse time, I just want to say, I've been involved with the sport, and I agree with you. I mean, Pro has done a lot of good things, but in the past, whenever they got in a situation where they basically said they were going to try to boycott a race, they always got in problems, and I think that's the problem here, because and I know when I drove, you really put yourself in a tough situation when you come out and say something like that, because you have sponsors that may say, hey, you got a contract, you have to run the race. There ain't no boycotting any events, so it's always very, very difficult to make a statement, in my opinion, like that. As far as the concessions, you're exactly right. The concessions that you got were being negotiated ahead of time. Take, for instance, the TV side of it. I mean, it was our first race. Obviously, we knew at the end of the race there were things that we could do better and the things we were going to work on. The staging system was, I talked with Bob Brockmeyer and Jeff Foster with CompuLink before the race, and they had already had an idea on the staging system ahead of time, but they couldn't implement it because they were concerned about the scoring and timing. So you're exactly right. You did get those concessions. I think where it all came into head was that initial statement from Pro that got Bruton Smith going, and that's where I came back with the backpedaling situation. If you'd have put in that statement that we aren't going to run there unless we get some issues resolved, then we wouldn't be having this conversation. Yeah, and no, you're right. And the thing is, I got so many emails, most of them not so good, some fans that just plain didn't like it. And like I told them, I got to get thicker skin here, and that's part of my problem. I take it all personal, but if you really, as a fan, don't like the 4-wide, you just disgusted with it. There's a great track right down the road, Atlanta. There's another one, Bristol, Tennessee, that you don't have to go. We'd love to go do it again. Bruton deserves to have the race again, and with the things fixed, I think it's going to be a good deal. And in March, our fourth race of the year, the drivers aren't that stressed about it. I'd be interested to go around and find out when the drivers did sign that, what was in their head, because I personally thought it was going to be added as a countdown race, and that really made me nervous with Vegas and Charlotte as a countdown race 4-wide. So knowing that wasn't the issue, hey, I'm all game to do it again.
Well, Ronnie, it was also pretty brave of you to come on and talk with Mike about that. We appreciate it. One thing it has done is generated a lot of talk about NHRA drag racing. Thanks, Guy.
You got it, man.
Thanks, Ron. You're still the best.
So that's how it is in regard to the whole thing over 4 wide, and I'm guessing that is not going to be the last conversation that we have on that. Well.